So for those of you who didn't see on the channel, about a couple of videos ago or so, I actually made a video talking about how and why I think the Richmond Football Club are going to dominate the 2025 AFL free agency and trade period. Again, I am, making these videos a little bit early, I know, but of course, you know me, I like to be very quick into this type of crap, and look, it's just what I genuinely find interesting, and it turns out a lot of you guys also, for some reason, find it interesting. But in that video, to pretty much summarize it up for those of you who haven't seen it, I do talk about how the Richmond Football Club are expected to kind of have some of the most, salary cap space that we have ever seen in the history of the AFL. Again, we know last season, the Tigers had, I think it was the first, third, and seventh highest paid players in the game, with Dusty on about 1.5 to 1.6 million. I think Lynch was on about 1.4 to 1.5 as the third, and Bolton was on 1 to 1.1 as the third. Again, as we know, Tom Lynch is now, at the time making this video, the highest paid player in the game on about $1.5 million. But of course, at the end of the season, not only is his contract going to expire, but Richmond also aren't paying Dustin Martin anymore because he retired, and Shea Bolton anymore because they traded him to the Fremantle Football Club. So again, I do highly recommend you guys go and check out that full video if you haven't already, because, I'll try and remember to link it down below if I don't. It's uploaded somewhere on this channel, but again, I do recommend it because there are a lot of players I think Richmond will target in 2025 free agency, just based off the fact that the AFL kind of makes teams spend all their salary cap, and they're not allowed to really go into the next season with some salary cap free. So most teams, we've seen give out ridiculous contracts before this. I think most notably someone like Jack Bowes at the Gold Coast Suns being given a crazy contract just because Gold Coast needed to pay someone. Again, Richmond will have to most likely bring in a free agent or two to try and fill out that salary cap at the end of the 2025 season. But there is one guy in particular who I didn't really talk about much in that video, because he's not actually a free agent in 2025. More so, he's actually a free agent in 2026. But I genuinely believe the Richmond Football Club are going to really, really chase him early to try and convince him to request a trade. Now, again, before I do get into who that is, there's still a decent amount of you guys who watch these videos who are not yet subscribed to the channel. So if you could do me a massive favor and leave a like on this video to let me know you enjoy it. Subscribe to the channel for the latest AFL content and Richmond content. And without further ado, let's just get straight into it. Now, don't get me wrong. Am I kind of playing NBA 2K My League with this type of video? Well, yeah, a lot of it is pretty fantasy. And there's a massive chance that the guy I talk about today will probably re-sign with the team he plays for on a big 8 or 9 year deal, becoming one of the highest paid players in the game. But as a Richmond fan who knows that we are going to have an insane amount of salary cap, who will be ready to offer some really, really big deals to players who would never even expect to be offered those type of deals, I think there is a slight chance in this. And again, with this player being linked to return back to Melbourne only a couple years ago, where he only signed a 2-year contract because it seemed like his future is kind of uncertain. And it does happen to be Zach Butters. Now, Zach Butters will be a free agent at the end of 2026, but it was only in 2024 where there were a lot of rumors saying that North Melbourne were really chasing him hard. Before 2024 started, North Melbourne were really, really interested in Zach Butters, and there were a lot of reports that they were getting ready to offer him a deal he almost couldn't refuse. But in old North Melbourne fashion, who have reportedly offered a ton of teams, and a ton of players, deals they cannot refuse, they yet again missed out on another free agent due to the fact that I think historically not many players really want to go to North Melbourne. They're not really a big market. They've got one of the lowest memberships in the game, one of the lowest supporter bases in the game. They don't generate anywhere near the amount of money as some of those bigger Melbourne teams do. So they genuinely just miss out on a lot of really good players in free agency, and that's why they always seem to have salary cap. But where I'm genuinely going with this is, there was clearly interest from Zak Butters there, and there were reports saying that he was kind of contemplating it, and again, some of the factors of what I've just mentioned earlier were maybe the reasons he turned it down and elected to sign a very small but strategic contract to re-sign with Port Adelaide on a 2-year deal. Again, because of his loyalty, he was given vice captain, but some people out there say that he wasn't given captain due to the fact that Port Adelaide know that Connor Rozee is going to be here for the absolute long run, and he is, again, going to be absolutely captain material. He'll be there forever, and he'll be a Port Adelaide player for life. But I think potentially for them, there may have been a lot more doubts on Zak Butters staying, so they gave him a, vice captain because he proved himself and re-signed, and of course they're letting him do his thing for now. But as mentioned, 2026, he is going to be a free agent, and I think that Richmond, whether it's 2025 or 2026, are going to absolutely throw him a massive offer that could possibly not only be as good as North Melbourne's was a couple years ago, but even better. And of course, this time, he goes to a team who, yes, they're going to finish last most likely 2 seasons in a row, but they've arguably got one of the best young cores already. They're already building 2 more first-round picks in next year's draft, which will both be most likely top 5 picks as well. And they have one of the biggest supporter bases in the game, if not the biggest, one of the biggest memberships in the game, which was the biggest when they, of course, weren't last. And their sponsorship deals and income is just absolutely insane. And I think it's like nearly the biggest out of every professional sporting team in all of Australia. The only contenders maybe being like Collingwood. And I think the Brisbane Broncos in the NRL do okay, but no one cares about the NRL. Where I'm getting at here is not only is Zak Butters, I think, going to be offered a massive deal by Richmond to potentially return home, which could be a 7 and 9 year type deal, but I think he'll very much look at it because this was probably the type of offer that he was looking at in 2024 to maybe see if he was going to leave Port Adelaide, but instead he decided to take the Port deal because the only Melbourne club who was offering him that big deal was North, and again, he didn't go there for those previously mentioned things. We also got to talk about that this is a perfect opportunity for Zak Butters, who is only going to be 25 years old, to join a team that is very much lacking leadership and has one of the best young cores in the game, which in a couple years could already be straight away in the 8. But he has a very good opportunity to go to a team that he absolutely would perfectly fit in. Again, if we look at Richmond's midfield right now, it was by far the worst in 2024, but they'd added 2 massive crucial pieces in Sam Lawler and Josh Smiley through the draft. Again, adding these 2 players, they got in really nice ball users who are really good contested clearance players. The only knack on them, and even Tim Taranto and Jacob Hopper, is that there's not much speed going around in that midfield at all. Again, of course, I think they're going to address this in the 2025 AFL draft, but I also think they will be looking for another really good ball user to come into their team, who also, again, is an extremely quick player who can not only be quick on offense, but be a quick defensive player, that real nice 2-way play style, which we know that Zak Butters often has been pretty good at doing as well. So I think if Richmond could offer Zak Butters a deal he can't refuse, bring in another really quick, explosive player in the draft, you're looking at an incredibly good midfield that went from the worst in the AFL in 2024 to possibly in 2026 being one of the better ones, of a midfield that could look like Sam Lawler, Josh Smiley, Zak Butters, Tim Taranto, of course, whoever else they draft, and Jacob Hopper if he can get back to his playstyle. Again, on the wings, Hugo Ralph-Smith looks like a really good player. Jack Ross is doing his thing. Sam Banks has improved a little bit as well. It actually starts to look like a really, really good midfield. And look, I don't think Richmond would offer him the captaincy straight away. That just doesn't seem like a Richmond thing to do. But we know that Dawson spent 1 year at Adelaide, and then after that year, he was the captain of the football club. And with Richmond having very little to none leadership right now in terms of captain quality players, and Nank probably having 2 years of being captain max. They're going to be looking for a new leader, and if Zach Butters were to come in and play out the 2026 year with the Tigers, he could be seeing himself become the captain of the club really after that. So I think, yes, this is very early, and Zach Butters will probably sign a massive deal with Port Adelaide, and this is like a 1% chance to really happen. But something does deep down inside tell me that not only would he be the perfect player for Richmond to target and add to the team, fits in the age demographic and all, but he also would help with the leadership. Richmond would offer him one of the biggest deals in the AFL. He would go to one of the biggest clubs in the AFL and get to play with already an incredible young core that the Tigers are building there. It really does seem like if Port Adelaide have a bad year this year and maybe drop out of the 8, a team like Richmond could swoop in and offer Zach Butters an insane deal. Again, will any of this happen? Probably not. Am I just bored on my Thursday night and want to just make a YouTube video about Richmond playing NBA 2K and offering Zach Butters a deal? Well, yeah, and I'm assuming some of you guys might be as well. But again, if you haven't already, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Comment your thoughts and opinions down below. Do you guys think Richmond could talk Zach Butters in maybe coming to the team again, getting him to request a trade to the Tigers at the end of 25, or going for him in free agency in 2026? Again, I'd very much like to know your thoughts and opinions on this down below. Subscribe to my gaming channel and my IRL/long channels. Links for them will all be down below. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.